Hello, everybody. This is a little bit different from what I've usually been sharing here on YouTube. When I started doing a little YouTubing, my good friend Atomic67 recommended that I always have a map that I do stuff on that I don't just share on YouTube. Now here I am sharing this one here with all of you. I think I've mentioned this before, but if I had my preference or others or whatever when I play, I prefer the large maps. I think it's because they're just more lifelike. You can get in the middle of them, you don't see the edge. It's a little bit more immersive, at least to me. And the field size feels a little bit more realistic. I know there's such a thing as small fields, and of course, there's such a thing as large fields, but in terms of really getting a feel for the largeness of agriculture and what it feels like to put in a long day or whatever, there's nothing like a big map to do that. And one of them, and this is in Farm Sim 19, that I heard of and downloaded and have spent some amount of time on, is called the Peace River Map BC. And I had to do a little bit of math really to figure out just how large this map is. But before getting into that, I thought I would just start here, kind of on the title page, if you will. I've got a bunch of mods in here. I never did spend a whole lot of time playing Farm Sim 19. I didn't care for it as much as I did for some of the earlier versions. And I think there's been some improvements in 22 that fixed some of these things, but I did do some. And one of the apps I enjoyed, of course, was Peace River. Isn't that just a gorgeous picture? I assume this is a picture of the river. I've never been there. It's up in Canada, British Columbia. And I mean, this looks like, doesn't look like a lot of farming happens here. It actually appears to be mountains back here, but obviously a fall scene on the river. And depending on how you look at the map, it could obviously fit in pretty well with what we'll see here in a moment. But I just thought I would start here. I've always enjoyed coming into here and seeing the beautiful picture of what we're coming to. So I'll hit start. Yeah. I don't know if this is how Farm Sim 19 did it or if the modder just had a way to do this. Let me get past some of these things here. Each time it starts you, I mean, when you first start the map, you can pick a particular location that you want your central farm by what you purchase. But I've noticed that each time you start up the game, it puts you inside one of the homes. And it picks a different one each time. And I always enjoy these ones that have the sign in here. This house is protected by the good Lord and a gun. You know, everybody says in America we're full of guns and gun nuts. Well, this is Canada. So it's a map made by, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Camille Mapping. I'm not sure where he's located. And maybe before, let me I'll show around here a little bit, get something happening. Before I show some other items. It's a large map. I will say larger than a 16x map. So what you're seeing here, even though it looks like a standard map, it is substantially larger than the regular map. I would estimate a regular map probably fits, right here, if you can see the cursor on field 61, and maybe field 18 and 56. That's how large we're talking that this map is. And then if you can, like the entirety of Ravenport would fit, just up here in a little corner. So we're talking big agriculture here in this region and on this particular map. So you really need the larger farm equipment if you want to do some things with it. And I've obviously been playing on it a while. Let's start you with a little bit, as I recall. but I've purchased a number of fields here, and it takes quite a lot to do it. And it's in the spring, I'm in the middle of planting. So that's kind of what I've been occupied with at the moment. I have the Precision Ag mod installed, where you do soil samples, and work with, whether the lime that you put on, the chemical that gets applied, trying to optimize it so that it gets the best possible result with the least amount of chemical applied to the soil. So there's different soil types on here to manage, and different levels of fertility and pH level, and so I've enjoyed using this particular mod and seeing the impact of it as I work on this map. And obviously I don't have all this area here. That's just kind of how the soil sample worked. And frankly, I jimmied one of the mods, or kind of remodded it, because this is so huge. I didn't want to take the soil sample and spend literally a year going through the fields and taking sample after sample after sample just to get this area. So I kind of cheated a little bit. I made the samples more expensive to take, but I made them cover a much larger area to sort of help cut down the time, that it takes to do it. And there's some funky things happening in here. I'm not sure what's going on to make, this rectangle in this field. But be all that as it may, I've been enjoying it. And this particular version has the Seasons mod embedded. So, and a little bit more on that in a moment. There's all the typical season mods in here, and the crop rotation and what have you. I've enjoyed seeing the updates on that from the version that they had in 17. This kind of just is in the barnyard. I say barnyard. There really isn't a barn. Barn implies animals. The shop, machine sheds. This is kind of home base. I've set up some additional silos to bring in chemical and lime and fertilizer and those kinds of things. And to someone used to playing Farm Sim 15 and 17, there was a lot of changes in 19, so I'm trying to adapt to those each time I come in here. But this is kind of the main farmyard that I have, and I did put in a corn dryer over here, and that mod I kind of have installed as well. Matter of fact, I just got done drying a lot of corn and hauling it. Let me see if I can head out to the field if I tab out there. If ever there was a place for the big bud to freely roam, look at these fields. You can't hardly even see the edge of it down there. It's so big. Our main farm is down over here, but it just has the feeling of very big agriculture. A little bit ago, I finished planting this field here. I'm going to get this one going and get him also planting on some canola, I think. I think I can have him go for a while. I've previously set up a course, so using course play, gotta have that mod installed. Put in some canola here, and he's going to do it. This is quite a bit different from the map I'm doing on Galvin Valley, which is just a standard size map. My little planter in there is probably about as wide as, not even to the third wheel here, and yet this is the size we need to work in this environment here. There's another mod I put in. I don't know if people realized. I just happened to find this, and I know we all find mods different places. You could hear the crowing of all those birds. Apparently, in the original version of Farm Sim 19, when the birds were disturbed, as they were when our tractor just drove next to them, they would fly up and they would make their noise. And for whatever reason, however it happens in the programming world, those sounds were buried, quieted, lost. I'm not sure what it is. Well, some enterprising modder, and I don't remember who at the moment, discovered this and decided that he would bring those sounds out. So, sure enough, every time we disturb the birds, we hear them get very excited about it and tell us that they are there. As you can see on my little map down here, you can see the ground behind it turns green. It is pumping in a lot of fertilizer to improve the soil fertility. Yeah, there you heard the birds again. I suppose it could get quite annoying. But you can see it's it's adding fertility to the soil as we plant our canola here. So, and you can see how long this pass is here. We are going and going, but surprisingly, it will get across this field, and I don't know how many acres this field is. One nifty little thing about course play is it gives a time, kind of at the bottom here, an estimated time that it will be complete. So we basically have an hour and a half here where it'll be working. And I don't know how you all play Farming Sim, but to me, I am more excited kind of about the business aspect of it, you know, growing the business, if you will. I am less enthralled, although I do enjoy it. I enjoy agriculture for agriculture's sake, but these fields are just so huge. The idea of spending a lot of time just tractor driving, well, I'm a pretty busy guy in my real life, if you will. I know we all are, so we pick and choose kind of where you want to spend time, and I've just chosen to hire most of this. Yeah, he's kind of cutting a corner, can't be helped. So anyway, I'm going to rely on this guy just hired to take care of planting this whole field. He's got plenty of diesel, probably has plenty of fertilizer, and I know he has plenty of canola in there to get the job done. Yeah, that's another difference, by the way. We can see the background moving. I know in Farm Sim 15, as soon as you hit escape and you get into the menus, everything in the game halts. But the Peace River, you know, probably if we had to venture a guess, the picture at the beginning would have been taken maybe somewhere down here, pointing up at this direction. There is, you can kind of see clear up here, far distant mountains. And by the way, that's another mod that I have in here, kind of self-made, if you will. I don't know if anybody's ever noticed, but in the largest maps, there's a lot of times you literally cannot see clear to the edge of the map when you're kind of in the middle of it. You know, and right here, we're not dead center in the middle. We're here, and there's a whole lot of undeveloped area up here. But by all rights, we wouldn't be able to see that far because there are limits that the game engine imposes, or the Lua scripting used, rather, as to how far the player camera can see. And I can't remember exactly, there's a lot of birds. I can't remember exactly what it is. It's either 5,000 or 7,500 meters where the game just quits rendering what you're able to see. Well, when you have a very large map, it is a long ways from one end to the other, and it's much further than 5 or 7,500 meters. So you have to, there's a script that I put in here that goes ahead and shows it anyways, so you can still see it, and the game will render it. It probably costs a few resources, you know, no doubt about that. I'm not even sure what my FPS is here. You know, look at that. I don't have a very powerful computer. You know, maybe sometimes our folks are put off from trying a larger map, worried that it's going to challenge the resources of your computer. But really, I mean, I'm pulling 59 to 60 FPS. That's really not too bad because I don't have that strong of a PC. I think detail is a lot of times what is a FPS killer. detail and a lot of equipment sitting kind of in the same proximity to one another will a lot of times kill your FPS and make the game stutter a little bit. But I've enjoyed this. I mean, it's just pretty smooth because there's not that much out here except wide open space and roads. And I do have the auto drive mod in here. Shoot, we could probably turn it on and you could see it. I mean, there it is. I got it coming into the field. You can see some of this over here. But I have extensive networks on the map that is just really helpful, when you're moving such long distances and have work to do in the field. So we're making our way around here with our big bud, and we're not even all the way around this field yet. We're on, 27. We started over here. We're coming up on the 3/4 mark, if you will. So playing this style, you definitely have to have more patience, maybe, or if you're going to sit here and watch it, flat out more time. There's been a number of instances I've just let this run, particularly on. I enjoy watching, the spring has always been my favorite season of the year, and I enjoy getting out in the fields and seeing this. So I'm pretty active, when this is taking place. There are other things that are less interesting to me. For example, I mentioned on the farm I put in the grain dryer down here. Well, we took all this wet corn out of storage and ran it through the dryer. Then we hauled all the dry corn and hauled it back to general storage. Well, that was a lot of truck work, and I let a lot of that just kind of run in the background and just periodically would come and babysit it from time to time and make sure nothing happened. All right, is everybody getting tired of hearing those crows? I don't know if there's a way to turn them off or not. I'd maybe have to remove or deactivate the mod somehow. So maybe we're making the corner for our canola field here, and I am trying to follow some of those crop rotation guides that we have in the seasons mod. Maybe just go look up one of those. Previously, this had a crop of corn, so I'm putting in some canola, and it's kind of a challenge, developing rotation plans and figuring out the best bang for your buck. And some of these, I think, I'm just going to let fallow. Because truth be told, we make money hand over fist in this game anyhow. So yeah, I am. Previously, there was corn in here. So now I'm punching in some canola. I don't know if I'm on this plant or this one over here. But we'll try to see how that all works out. I don't even know how many so-called years I've been doing it in here. But several seasons. Enough to just enjoy the map. So while our hired help is working away, I thought I would step out of the game real quick and just show a couple things on the Peace River and kind of where I got the map and what have you. So let me just step out, get him to put this down. This is kind of the DEM map. More on that here in just a second. The Peace River, this is North America, Pacific Ocean over here, Canada up above the U.S., British Columbia is over on the western side, and it's not only British Columbia, but also, I believe this is Alberta. Maybe someone from Canada will correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it starts over in British Columbia. The Rocky Mountains, I believe, come up through here. I know down here it's called the Cascades. I don't know what they call them up here, but basically starts over in here, high up in the mountains in British Columbia, punches through somehow the Rockies, and you can kind of see the watershed, and eventually it empties into, I believe, the Slave. Am I reading that right? The Slave River, and then heads up to the Great Slave Lake. This must be Yukon territory, if I'm not mistaken. Well, maybe this is Yukon. I'm not very good on my geography up here, so maybe someone from Canada, maybe this is Yukon over here. I'm not sure what this one is. And eventually empties ultimately clear up in the Arctic Ocean, somewhere up in there. So that's kind of where it is, just where the map author chose to represent it here. I suspect, of course, it is in the mountains. It's probably somewhere. He does say BC, so maybe it's over here. I don't know how much of an ag region it is, but more likely, maybe it's over in Alberta. I think there may be more agriculture takes place over there. But this is kind of the region of the world, where it is, and I was always told that my grandfather years ago considered settling up in the Peace River area, and periodically, he eventually founded the farm of Lona Oak, which I have a series on, and someone graciously made a map for that down in the U.S. and Oregon. But for a while, he considered farming up here, moving his family, and periodically you could hear him speak fondly of what he called the Peace River country. And now, as I understand, I think they're putting in another dam. I knew somebody who was up here working on it in excavation, and I don't know how many years off it is, and who knows how much land or farmland or people it'll displace. That's kind of always a troublesome things, with dams, even if you need them, is, the damage that gets caused and people, that it displaces, and maybe even good farmland. But be all that as it may, this is the area we're talking about, or this map is, and the mapper, I found him on Facebook called, how would you say this? Camille Farms? I don't know if he specializes in the larger maps, which this one happens to be. But this is where it is, Camille Mapping. He's continuing to make them for Farm Sim 22. I don't know the person. This just happens to be a group that he set up on Facebook for it. And it appears now he's putting all of his mods, and I'll try to put a link in the description, putting all of his mods on, and I've seen some other guys do this too. It's this itch.io. I guess if you have a creative itch, you put your stuff on here. Makes me think maybe at some point, I don't know what it takes to set up an itch.io. Maybe this would be a good place to park some mods. So if a person wants to explore the Peace River map, this is where you would download it, the official site, if you will. I'm sure you can pick it up elsewhere on the web, but in terms of where the map author has released it, it's here. And there's two different versions, by the way, and we'll get into this in a moment. With and without the seasons mod, the way he structured this map, I don't think it would work with the normal seasons mod. So if you want to have seasons included, you need to download this version of the map. And it's curious kind of how he did it. We won't get into it at the moment, but he literally embedded the seasons mod in the map. It's included in the map files, so you do not and should not have the seasons mod in your mods folder. Let's just go take a look at our guy, and this will prove my computer is not very stout. Yeah, see that jump? More birds. Yeah, so we're working on our second round. He looks like he's doing well. All right, we'll step back out. So that's his website, and so we'll just minimize that. I want to go back here for a moment and talk about something. The large maps, we throw around terms like, 1x, 2x, 4x. I think I've even heard 10x before. I'm not sure there is such a thing, but I've heard people say 10x. Even with respect to this map here. What you see in front of you is what's called a digital elevation model, or a DEM, DEM. And every single farming sim map has in its files a DEM map. And all it does is it's telling, based on colors and the shading in here, which area is high and which area is low. So I don't know if anybody recognizes this. This is the map of Ravenport, that came with the game. And so I think in the map, I believe there's a pond up here. The ocean maybe is over along here. I think there's some water up here. This may be a lower area. Maybe there's some water down in here. And then there's some higher areas, and this is kind of how the fields and hills are all structured in here. And then we as players can do additional damage in game. But it all starts with a basic DEM map. And if you make your own map, and here's the one for the Peace River, and someone may say, but it's the same size. So how does that work? How do you have a huge map when it looks all the same size? Only it really isn't. It's kind of this is paint.net I'm using here. If we just take a look at something here, the size for a standard size map, and this is in numbers of pixels, is 1025 by 1025. If you have, this is what you'd call like a 1x map. If you have a 4x or 4 times this, you would double the lengths, and going to 16x, and I'll show a matrix shortly, you would quadruple it on a side. So here now, this is the one for the Peace River, and we'll just see what size it is. 4097 pixels, which is basically 4 times what we have over here. And yet, so this by all rights would be what's called a 16x map. But I'll show in a minute how the map author kind of did something clever to get around that. But anyway, this is the DEM app, shows the highs and the lows. The Peace River obviously comes along here, and it shows up over here. There's kind of a town down in this area. This is the basic highs and lows, so it's pretty flat up here. There's a few higher areas, and then it goes into a long sweeping slope down to the water in the river that comes through here. Here is a matrix that kind of talks about the sizing of a map. And so, remember I showed the size of a standard map, 1025. It's actually one additional pixel that's in there, and there's a reason for that additional pixel, and I can't quite articulate it. I know I have a friend who's able to do much better with that. I probably should link up to some of his articles that he's put in here on it. But basically, and then in a map, let me just see if I can, inside a map, like this is Ravenport, buried way down here in the i3D file in what's called a terrain transform group, is something here called units per pixel. And it's talking about the units per pixel in the DEM app. You'll see it says 2. So when I go back over here, -1 pixel times 2, you get the size in meters. So a standard map is 2,048 meters, or 2 kilometers, if you will, on a side. 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers. 4x map is double that, if you will, on a side, and it's 4,096 meters on a side, even though the DEM map would show 2,049 pixels. A 16x map is quadruple, so you take 4 times this, and you can kind of see how the math works, and it shows, it's really kind of an exponential progression because it's in the shape of a square. I don't know if there are maps out there that are not in the shape of a square. I think what the Giants have us do is have it in the math has to be 2 to some power. So 2 to the second power would be 4, 2 to the third power would be 8. Well, eventually you get to 1024. or +1 to get that. So maybe it's possible to have rectangular size maps. I really don't know. But this is the standard map, what's called the 4X map, which would be 4 of them that fit in there. And then the big hog 16X map, and where you could fit 16 standard maps. But that isn't really what we have here with a Peace River. I think what we have is a 25X map. And the reason is because of something the map author did. If you recall correctly, it's set up similar to a 16X map, where it had a digital elevation model size of 4,097 pixels, which would imply 8 meters on a side, or 8 kilometers. But what he did is he put the units per pixel at 2.5 meters per pixel for the size. Thank you, Atomic 67. The ad is telling me that I'm out of time, because I've been too wordy. But I'll finish this here real quick. So you can see he put that in here. This is over on the Peace River map, units per pixel, 2.5, to make it even larger than the 16X map. So it makes it just enough bigger at 2.5 meters per pixel based on this to get roughly 10 kilometers on a side. 10.24 to be exact. So this is what we're dealing with in here. And when we go back to the map, and 25X is just counting all the individual squares in here to see how many times an original size that it is. But that's kind of what we have in here. Now we'll wait for it to jump a little bit as the machine catches up. Oh, it's doing a course play thing and never starts where you think it is. Let me pull up this is the square. So this is 10 kilometers on a square, but as you'll see, this upper part up here isn't used. So it is 10 kilometers this way, so maybe this is roughly 8-ish. The map author chose to, there's just some grassy area up here, if you will. I suppose you could make hay up there, mow it. I've contemplated doing a little modding and adding additional fields. And somewhere up in here, I think he has kind of some outline of mountains, which are just other objects superimposed kind of over the surface of the map. So, but be it as it may, it's definitely a unique map. I don't know of any other map that happens to be 10 kilometers on a side and 10 kilometers the other way. Now, I think I have heard there are some guys out there working on, something even larger. If you go up from a 16X map just through normal doubling, the next logical one to be would actually be a 64X map. But you start having to do tricks to get the game engine to cooperate. It's my understanding that 16X is normally the largest you'd be able to go with what game engine's able to handle. But you can change the pixels, and I think that's what those fellas are doing that are trying to get clear up to a 64X map, is they will have a dim that's the same size as a 16X map, and they'll just make 4 units per pixel versus the 2 that we see in the map. So maybe more than y'all wanted to know, but regardless, just wanted to share something I was doing in another map, just to do something a little bit different on these. Hope everybody is having a wonderful day. Thank you for watching this for a little bit, and I'll bid you adieu until the next one. Goodbye for now.